We're back.
We gotta wait for them to come back in.
Alright.
Because they were
So how many people are in there? Do you...
I gotta figure out how to get back on here. I think we're still on. I'm not sure. I think.
Well, we've gone over 30 minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to continue?
Well, I don't want to just leave people hanging. I mean, I'd like to wrap it up.
Hopefully they'll come right back in here.
Kim, do you need to charge my tablet?
People are coming back in.
Do you need to
Go
charge
ahead.
my tablet?
Alright.
No, your tablet's fine, thanks.
Well, anyway, I started talking about tracheal mites. The tracheal mites back in the 1950s onward for many years were the pests that were bothering the honeybees, and these tiny mites would get lodged into the bees' throats, and it would actually start choking them, and it would actually start the bees would start being less bees in numbers. They weren't surviving, and so people had to come up with ways. How do you take care of tracheal mites? Well, they found out that if they take something like eucalyptus oil or menthol oil and use something like that in the hive, that it would actually, the air would permeate, very much like your mints, the air in the hive would permeate with that menthol, and it would take care of the tracheal mites and keep them in check. And you don't ever hear beekeepers talking about tracheal mites anymore, because pretty much that took care of the problem they had. Now people ask, what about the new thing, varroa mites? Varroa mites, in case you don't know, are a pest that develop, they grow inside the cells with the baby bees, and they develop with them, and when they hatch out, they're about the size of a backpack. So if you had, say this was about the size, this was a varroa mite, and this was a bee. The varroa mite would attach itself to the back of the bee, just like a backpack, but it would be biting into the bee, trying to get the fluid from the bee, biting into them, piercing into the bee. So what it does is it weakens the bee, and also it can carry diseases, and that's what's been really doing damage the last few years. Is there's been diseases that the varroa mites have been carrying that have been infecting the bees, and the bees don't have a natural resistance to the viruses, some of the viruses.
Welcome back in, everybody.
So, but in any case, varroa mites, some people say, well, what if we just ignore it? Well, ignoring it means letting the population get to a point that it wipes out the bees. So you don't want to ignore the varroa mites, but at the same time, there's got to be a sensible way to go ahead and treat the varroa mites without hurting the population of bees. So, and another thing they've realized, just like any kind of insecticide or anything that people use for other insects, that the varroa mites can build up resistance to stuff. So they're getting to where they're resistant to this kind of varroa mite treatment. So the beekeepers have to come up with something different. And of course, the more natural way to go is something like oxalic acid. Oxalic acid, if you're not familiar with what it is considered an acid, but in powder form, people use it to bleach wood, to make wood very light, very light in color. So that's what it's used for. But sometimes with beekeeping, what beekeepers use, they use oxalic acid inside the hive, and what it does is it will attack or treat the varroa mite and wipe them out, but it won't hurt the bees. I wouldn't say it won't hurt them completely, but if you use it in excess, it may. But people will use oxalic acid. It's more natural. And you might say, well, where does oxalic acid come from? There are several plants in nature that actually produce oxalic acid. And the oxalic acid is something that's natural. One thing that has oxalic acid is the plant stinging nettles. Stinging nettles has oxalic acid in it. There's also a plant, a clover plant, that's oxalis, and it is the same thing that that people would use to treat the bees.
I heard it was in tea and also in grapefruit.
Yeah, you could, the oxalic acid itself, you could use it. Now, in fact, there's people in Eastern Europe that have bees. They go and look for the stinging nettle plant, and what they'll do is inside their inner cover, they'll just lay that, or in between where the brood is, they'll just lay some of that in there. And of course, it's a live green plant. So what does the bee do with anything in the hive they don't want in there? They cut it up in little pieces and take it out.
Very nice.
One thing we didn't hit upon, Kim, and we're coming up, getting closer to winter. Beside feeding sugar water, and again, what I do is I heat water to a boil and add as much sugar until it doesn't dissolve. I don't boil the sugar water. You don't want to boil water that has sugar in it, because it'll turn into something else that's not good for the bees. You just want to dissolve it so the bees can use it. But in any case, I beside feeding them the sugar water, some people will take and feed them sugar, dry sugar, on top of the hive inside. They'll use dry cane sugar, or they'll use a fondant. Some people say, well, what's the difference between using just plain dry sugar and fondant? Probably about an hour of your time. Basically, in order to make fondant, you have to have it at the right candy stage. You have to use a very, very fine sugar. It's not like cane sugar. It's like a powdered sugar. And you have to have it just right in order to make it. And most people that try to make it will mess up one way or the other, and it comes out like gooey globs, and they can't use it anyway.
Do you actually use candy boards in the winter, or do you do something different?
Well, I don't have a candy board that's made just with candy on it. What I do is I'll take my inner cover, I'll take a shim about 2 inches, just a square frame, like a picture frame, square piece, and what I do is on top of the inner cover, I put a piece of paper over the inner cover hole, which is like that big. Put a piece of paper over that, and I pour granulated sugar, cane sugar, pour it in there until it piles up pretty good. And then what I'll do, I'll make a little groove in it, and then pour some sugar water in that groove to help solidify that a little bit, so that it's a little bit harder for the bees, so that they can use it easier to take it in. Some people will actually make like a patty. They'll take a tray or something and wet the sugar and make it like a cake, if you will, and they'll let that dry out. You can do that too. You can make it to the size to fit it. I used to take a pie pin and put moist sugar, not really wet, but just moist, into like a pie pan. Once it dries out, it'll be like a brick, and you can set it inside the inner cover. What that means, so you might say, well, when do I do that? Basically, you know the bees are going to have some honey to start going into the winter. Now, as the winter progresses, usually in what I wait until January or very early February.
But you're down south. I've got to do this sooner, right?
Not necessarily, because you got to remember, the bees are only going to be able to get to that sugar or that food on top when it's warm enough to break cluster.
Okay.
Now bees, it has to be.
When you say break cluster, there might be people here that don't understand what that means.
What that means is the temperature, the air around the bees has to be about 45 degrees, 45 degrees, for them, some of the bees, to break away from the ball of cluster. The way that the bees go through the winter, and it's very, very few insects that I know of that even live through the winter.
I've had people ask me, do the bees sleep in the winter? It's like,
no, the bees actually live. They live like a floating ball of bees in the hive, and what they do is they slowly move where the honey is, and they eat the honey. When the bees eat the honey, they give off heat in their bodies, so it keeps the center of that cluster warm.
And who's in the center of the cluster?
The center of the cluster is going to be your queen. They're going to protect that queen at all costs.
Yeah.
But anyway, what they'll do is that ball of bees will keep moving and feeding. But when they break cluster, it gets just warm enough. Some of the bees can go up and get food. Now it's important, like in here in upstate New York, you'll get what you call a January thaw, where it'll get above freezing. It'll be like 40, 45, and at that time is when they're going to be able to go up and do that. Now, a very important thing that we didn't really hit upon, which I'm thinking of now, is you don't want to open the hive when it's below 35 degrees. You don't want to do it, because what's going to happen to the bees? They're going to say, uh-oh, something's trying to get into us and attack us. They will fly up, and as soon as they hit that cold air, they'll drop to the ground dead. So you want to make sure you don't open the hive up when it's you got to wait till it gets warmer, but wait until your January thaw when it gets just warm enough. And the reason why is, again, they're going to eat up their honey stores, and about that time is the time that they're going to want a little extra food. Now, if you put on a cake that's enough sugar that's about 2 inches thick, that probably will last them, depending on how big the hive is. That cake will probably last them for about a month. So you want to go back in the next warm day, just pop the lid and see if they're eating it or not. If a hive has lots of stores in here in their hive, they don't need that. You'll open it up and they'll hardly even touch that. I've had that happen. I've had hives that didn't even touch it. And I've had hives also, when I put the dry sugar on top, they thought it was something they didn't want in the hive. They took it out in front of the hive and dropped it in the ground.
Well, I've heard they do that with mite, or not, the Swiffer sheets that people put in.
Right, the Swiffer sheets, the fibers in the...
Yeah, so why don't you explain about those?
If people use Swiffer sheets sometimes to take care of small hive beetles, and people say, well, how do they work? Well, a Swiffer sheet is nothing more than a cloth, but it has fibers in it. Usually has some paper mixed in with cotton. And what happens is the bees don't want that in their hive. So they start eating at it, and what it does is it puffs up the fibers. Now the bees usually don't have a problem with walking on them. But when a small hive beetle walks on those fibers, it has little tiny claws on its feet. And it'll actually get stuck on that claw, and it can't move. So that's a way that some people will use to help take care of the small hive beetles. They put in a Swiffer sheet, and I've seen it where that works very well, and I've seen other hives where it was so. It was kind of iffy. But yeah, but anyway, as far as feeding them like that, you want to wait till or very early January. Some people will wait till February. But remember too, in the early part of the spring, when the days start getting longer, the queens are going to start laying eggs. And you might ask, well, why is that important? When the queen lays eggs in that one spot, the bees are not going to move from that spot. So if the honey is too far away from them, the bees can't, if it's really cold for more than say 10 days, they will run out of honey, and they'll actually starve being in that one spot, and they won't be able to get to the food.
Excuse my dog, it just started pouring rain outside, and we call him the weatherman. We know the moment that any of the weather changes outside, he lets us know.
But yeah, that's one thing that that people just need to be aware. That's to take care. You just want to be careful when the bees are the queens laying eggs. They won't leave that. If there's honey nearby and they can't get to it, you want to kind of in your mind think about every 10 days or so that it gets warm enough for them to get to the food or to move to get to the food, especially in the beginning of the year. More beekeepers don't lose their hives when it's in January here when it's minus 10 degrees. They don't lose their hives. They lose their hives later in the spring when it's still cold. I mean later in the winter when it's still cold, and they can't break cluster. And it's colder for more than 10 days, and the queen's laying more and more babies, more and more eggs, and they have more to feed. So that's usually when a beekeeper will lose a hive. It'll be in the early part of the early spring.
So are you thinking May? I really got to be careful and watch what's going on with my hives.
No, actually before May. It'd be, in fact, in
April.
Yeah, in April you want to. If you put the sugar or candy board on, whatever, you put that on in say mid-January or so. Put that on there, and then just give them about a month and just see how they're doing. If they're eating a lot, then add more or pour more sugar in. Whatever you need to do, let them have that. I had one time where I had sugar on top like that, and I opened it up. Not only were there a lot of bees already up there, the queen was up there too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she had gone up there.
She
so
must have got really hungry because usually
usually
they feed her.
Yeah, usually they do, and for some reason the queen was right on top. So I was kind of concerned about that hive if they were going to make it.
And did they?
I'm thinking back. Hive if they were going to make it.
And did they?
I'm thinking back. I think they did make it, but it was touch and go.
And what's like in our area? Isn't like the rate of loss over the winter about 50% in New York State?
Generally, and most beekeepers lose about anywhere from 30 to 50% of their hives. Now that's only because, for whatever reason, the hive might die out, and there are websites online that you can actually look up, and one of them says, "Why did my beehive die?" And it gives you a list of things to look at.
Okay.
If they're starved, the bees will be inside the cell, and they'll be all in one spot, and that's kind of a giveaway. If they don't have
so they'll all crawl into a little.
They'll all crawl into the cell, trying to keep warm, if you will.
Okay.
Trying to survive, and
because the honey keeps them warm.
Right. They eat honey to keep warm, so they don't have that warmth, and they'll if they had eggs in there, even a small little patch, they're going to try to keep those alive at all costs.
Okay.
So they kind of sacrifice themselves to try to keep the bees alive and the queen. Sometimes you'll have a queen that will just die through or not survive through the winter, and she'll be in the hive and she'll not be with us anymore, and the bees don't know what to do, and eventually they just fizzle out too, and you have no bees left to start with. You have an empty hive. Now some people want to know too. Well, what do I do if we come through winter and nothing's in my hive? They're gone. Well, you want to make sure that you take it apart, examine it to see what may have caused that. What does it look like? Is there any discoloration in the cells?
Would you see varroa mites possibly at that point?
Sometimes you'll see them. Usually, if that happens, you'll see it in the bees on the bottom. You'll see the little varroa mite. Varroa mites are hard to see. They are very hard to see. But in any case, a lot of people say, "Well, I looked in my hive and I don't see them." Well, trust me, you usually won't see them very, very easily.
I heard they're very small.
They are very small, and they usually they're developing in with the baby bees, mainly the drone bees, because they take longer to grow, so more chances of varroa mites surviving in their cells and hatching out than in the worker cell. So you'll have more percentage of them. That's why the varroa mites like to lay their eggs in with the larvae of the drone bees. But what they'll do is, the population, they'll just grow and grow. Some people say, well, I've heard that if you buy a drone comb.
And explain what a drone is.
A drone is, of course, is a male bee, but the cells are bigger for when they raise drone cells. They'll make the cells bigger. Usually in a hive, they'll have about 5% drone. Well, some people thought, well, we'll go ahead and take care of varroa mite. We'll put a frame in there that'll be all drone cells, And what happens is all the varroa mites will be going into those frames, and when they hatch out, or before they hatch out, you take the frame out, and this is a good example. They'll take the frame out. That'll be all capped over, and they'll have all the drones in here, of course, growing, and they'll freeze that in the freezer, and they'll actually kill the varroa mites that are in there. Now you might say, well, that sounds really good. What if, oh, you forgot to take it out before they hatched?
Yeah, yeah.
You just now increased your varroa population by triple or quadruple what was in the hive because you put this frame in there.
Now this green frame, the drones are actually, sorry, the drones are actually larger than the worker bees, and the females are smaller, the males are bigger. And these little cone-shaped things here, not cones,
Hexagons.
hexagons. Yeah, the little hexagons here are larger than the ones on, I don't have a brood frame, you've got it in there.
No, nope, it's out.
Okay, on, there's a brood frame right there. But anyways, then the brood frame, hold on one second, we'll grab that. Don't fall over in your chair. Okay, so this is the brood frame. And I don't think you guys can see this from this distance, but these little hexagons are way smaller. And these, they would make the girl bees mostly on here. Every once in a while you'll see a drone that they'll make. But if you put this in the green one, every hexagon in here is larger. So that would mean that they would make the whole entire thing boy bees, which are drones. And that's what the varroa mite like to lay their eggs in.
They prefer to lay them in here. So that's a word of caution for people that think this is the solution. And you got to realize this is the way that I look at it, because I'm very practical as far as trying not to have the bees work harder than they need to. You realize when the bees have to draw this out with the wax,
yeah,
the queen has to fill that all up with drone eggs.
Oh yeah, and that's less room for her to make.
Right, less room for other bees or honey or anything else. They cap it all over. They use wax to cap it all over. They do all that work with this frame for you to put it in a freezer that wipes out everything, and then you scrape that all down, you put it back in the hive for them to do it all over again.
And you might ask, why do you have that? Because before I talked to Steve, I bought myself 4 of them. Oops.
Now here's the thing, Kim. I need to let you know this too. This is good if you're going to start raising queens with the queen grafting
okay, so I
system.
Can use that.
Then
right?
you can use them. You want more male bees in another hive other than where you're getting your eggs to make the queens.
Oh, okay. So
you can
they're not totally a
right.
waste
You
then.
can still use them.
All right, that's good.
And in fact, you might let the bees, when they're drawing out frames, let them draw them out and then take them out and just before they put anything in it, go ahead and keep them, and then they're all ready to go if you need to put them in there.
Now this machine right here, you can go ahead and tell about that. But if you watch some of my other videos, you'll actually see how to use this. I've shown it probably in 3 of my videos, and it won't be too much longer. We'll be making probably 3 or 4 more of those videos. So
yes.
Stay tuned.
This is a vaporizer for oxalic acid vaporizer, and what it does is you would have the powder in there, and you'd have some sort of heat source or gas.
Butane. That one's butane.
Right. You'd have a gas to heat it up to a point that it would become a vapor, and then what you would use it for is you would close down your entrance enough, and you would just so you could put enough smoke in there, the vapor to permeate the hive, and it's only
and you cover this part with a towel to make sure that the bees don't come out of the hive while you're using it.
Right.
It only takes probably, I don't know, a minute.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, you just need enough for the vapors to get all through the hive, to fill the hive up with the vapors. Once that's done, pull it out. You don't want to overdo it. Just like any kind of treatment for any kind of in your yard for any kind of insect or anything you're trying to eradicate, you don't want to use too much. Some people think, well, I use more, it's better. Well, in some cases, you're doing more damage.
Well, the other thing that I was told is when I do turn this on, could you hold that for a second? When I turn this on, I want to turn it on just enough so I can just barely hear it hiss. Because if you turn this knob on too much and it lets too much of the butane out, what's going to happen is it's going to burn the wings off of your bees.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's like having a really hot smoker too.
Yeah, I heard it also turns the oxalic acid into another chemical that can harm the bees too.
Yeah, well, anytime you burn something hotter than it needs to be.
Right.
Just like your smoker, if you got stuff in there that you just want to create a little bit of smoke, you don't want to create flames and ashes blowing out and everything else.
Right.
You're defeating your purpose of why you're doing it.
What's this little thing?
Ah, yes. This is
not that I don't know.
She knows. She's pulling your leg.
Yeah.
This is a queen holding cage, if you will, and the cover of it slides off. And what happens is if you have a queen that you want to move her to another hive, you want to go ahead and catch her. You could put her in something like this cage and hold her in there. Now the holes are big enough for the bees to feed the queen, to take care of her. Anytime you do that though, you want a few worker bees in the box with her. You don't want her by herself. I had a case one time when I was putting a new queen in a hive, and it was in a cage, and the opening was only on one side. And I went into that hive, I had it in between the frames, it had fallen down to the bottom upside down. They couldn't get to the queen to feed her, and I thought, oh no, she's probably dead. When I picked it up, she was still alive.
Good.
So I was able to save her. But anytime you put a queen in a hive, you don't want to block it off completely to where the bees can't take care of her and feed her. But it's good, sometimes it's good especially if you got a swarm of bees and you want to make sure you keep that swarm when you're trying to catch them. If you slowly look for the queen and catch her, you put her in the box, do you know the rest of the bees are going to go where she is? So it's almost like a sure thing of keeping those bees in a swarm. Some people will box up a swarm, and I did it myself. I put a swarm in a nice box, and a good swarm, and they were in there, and it seemed like it was going to be great. And I went out a little while later. I heard a lot of buzzing, and they were leaving the box.
Oh wow!
They didn't like the box, and so anyway, they landed over farther, and it was later in the afternoon. I waited until it was getting near dark, because I knew if I caught them then, the bees wouldn't be able to fly at night, so I'd have a better chance of catching them. So not only did I catch them put them in the box then, I closed it up, took it more than a couple miles away. And what that allowed for is when they came out of the box, the hive, they had to orientate to where they were now at, and they're more likely to stay put. And that's something I was going to mention to you, Kim, and I didn't. Where's our hunk of wax?
Right there under the glove.
Okay. When you have a new piece of wood and you're going to put bees in it, what you want to do, if you have a piece of beeswax,
a new piece of wood,
new piece of wood on the inside of the box, take the beeswax and just rub it over.
Oh, okay.
Just like you had a bar of soap, if you will, but rub all over on the inside of the box with beeswax.
Oh, I didn't even think
and
that. That's smart.
People wonder, well, why would you do that? It just makes the box smell like home.
Yeah, makes
sense. If you ever smell new wood, you smell the wood.
Just like when they make chocolate chip cookies when they're selling a house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have.
They want you to come in
right,
and buy it.
They want you. It's just like you go to the store and they're baking bread. And
yeah,
you're like,
right.
oh, I want bread right now. But anyway, you want to rub the inside of that new wood with beeswax, and that allows them to make it smell good, and they're more likely to stay put. it is kind of tough sometimes to catch a swarm, because sometimes they'll just wanna they'll stay in the box and it'll be fine. Some of the things, one thing you can do if you have another hive and you want to catch a swarm, before you go and get the swarm, take a frame that's got some brood on it. Not a lot of brood, but enough brood on it, baby bees, if you will. Take that frame with you, with whatever box you're going to use to catch that swarm. They're more than likely to go on that frame and stay in that box because they're used to taking care of babies. So the swarm will stay in that, whatever box they're in, if you have a frame that has some brood on it. Now, another thing most beekeepers will do is take a frame that has old brood comb on it. It'll be an old brood comb. It might be empty,
Yep.
but it will have brood in it one time. It might be a darker frame or whatever.
Yeah, because the wax gets darker as the years go by. Yeah.
Now here's a trick that I've seen done, and I really believe it works well. You take that frame that has an old brood comb on it, and say the swarm here is on a bush right here. You take that frame, here, give me that frame. And it's got the old wax comb on it. You can actually just hold it there near the swarm. They'll crawl up on it.
Right, and hopefully the queen comes with.
Right. Well, you don't. A lot of people think you got to brush them and work a lot to get them to go on the frame. But if they've got an old comb that had brood on it at one time or whatever, they're more than likely to just crawl right up on that frame.
Nice.
And you can be assured of getting that. Some people will, and people ask me, do you wear a suit when you go get a swarm? I bring a suit or bring a veil, and here's the thing, I don't know for sure. If they're on a branch that is small enough that I can clip the branch with pruners, clip the branch and bring them down and put them in the box, that's fine. If they're on the side of something that's bigger, that you might have to knock the bees down, you want to wear a suit. Now the thing being is when you try to scrape them off, they're going to be a little bit upset because you're brushing them, you're pushing them, if you will. Whereas if you had them on a branch, if you're real gentle with that branch, all you got to do is set it down in the box. And what I usually do is wait a minute, and I shake it once or twice, and all the bees that are on the branch fall off. And then some people will say, well, is that all you do? No. When I'm shaking all the bees off, I take that branch and take it 20 or 30 feet away and throw it away. Because that branch has the pheromone of the queen.
Oh.
The bees will smell that pheromone and go right back to that branch, even though the queen might be in the hive. So there's a chance that you might lose that swarm because they might go back to that branch. Same thing as if they're up in a tree branch or whatever, and you're trying to shake them down or whatever. Sometimes they'll fly back up, and I've had them do that 2 or 3 times, and I just shake the branch, keep shaking it, and shaking the bees off, and hoping that the bees will come down. And what they do in a swarm situation, the bees will raise up the back abdomen part of their body, and they have a gland called the nasal noth gland. And what that does is it releases a pheromone that tells the other bees, okay, this is where we're all going. So they'll do that and they'll let the other bees know where they are. So when you see them lift up the back part, they're letting other bees know this is now home. So when you transfer that hive from the nuke.
When we transfer that hive.
Yes, when we transfer that hive to the new box.
The 11th.
On the 11th, when we transfer that, what's going to happen is once the bees realize that that's where the queen is, that's where mama is, they're gonna raise up the back end of their abdomen, and they're going to give off that pheromone, and other bees that are flying around, not sure what they're doing, will fly down and they'll go into the box.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah. So anybody have any questions?
I don't know. Let's see here. We've got a few people that keep coming in and out.
All right.
And I think
Well, I don't know if
We've
there's
got
much
one
more
person in here.
to talk about. Oh, one thing I do want to bring up, and we were talking about helping take care of diseases in the hive.
Yeah.
If you've got a virus or whatever. I've heard this recently, and I've been doing it for a number of years. In the sugar water, I put in a few drops of tea tree oil.
Okay.
It's essential oil, not one that has alcohol in it. It's pure whatever the fragrance is. In this case, tea tree oil. I put a few drops of that in my gallon of sugar water, and what that does is that's actually a treatment to help with any kind of virus or bacteria, and it'll actually help the bees to ward off any kind of virus. And they're saying now that it might even help keep varroa mites in check, which is great. But in my sugar water, I had lemongrass oil, tea tree oil. I had a couple drops of spearmint and a couple drops of peppermint oil. And that's what I put in my sugar water. Now, some people use what they call emulsion. Emulsion, what that means is it suspends the oil throughout.
Salad dressing is an emulsion. It means the items drop to the bottom, and then you shake it up, and then
Right. So I don't do that, but when I go to feed with the gallon jug, I just shake the jug up, pour it into my quart feeders, which I use, and feed them. So. And some people think, well, if they get that oil, it'll hurt the bees. I've never seen dead bees in front of my hive after I feed them. So they're fine.
I have. Look what I did.
What did you did?
What I did, you'll see it in one of my videos. I felt absolutely terrible. We forgot to put the cover on our feeder.
So they got up in there.
So a lot of them drowned in the sugar water, and I felt terrible about it.
I have a feeder.
And I didn't realize at the time in the video what I had done, and I just sort of said something else, and then I looked. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, where's the lid?
I've had that happen before. I had internal feeder. It's like a tray, like a frame, and it's where they can climb down in there. And I had some bees drown in there too, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to throw some wood chips in there. That's all I did.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And the wood chips float on top of the sugar water.
That makes sense.
And they don't drown.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you were thinking about it, and say by chance, something got loose or whatever, and they got into it.
Welcome in.
So yeah, they'll be able to be okay, and you won't lose the bees. Same thing with the people that open feed with bees. They'll put a container in their bee yard. You want to make sure that that's more than probably about 75 yards from your bees. You don't want anywhere near your bees if you're going to do open feeding, which means it's a container that has sugar water in it, and you put pebbles in it or something else so that the bees can land on that to feed. I don't prefer open feeding just because you're going to feed everything.
Right.
You're going to feed ants, you're going to feed wasps, whatever like sugar water is going to be there trying to eat it.
Okay, well, what about your frames? After you've extracted your honey, obviously, you've sorted all of your hives out so they each have the amount that they need, but then in the end, you're going to have supers that have like frames in them that you don't need for the winter, and you don't want to make your hive that big,
right,
because of the fact of the heat factor. So what do you do with those frames? I've seen many people just put them outside, let the bees take and eat the honey and the nectar out of them, and then they put them in the freezer. Now, I was thinking about doing that, but I'm concerned about being too close to my hives. So,
yeah, the thing
and
that
my extractor.
The best way to do that is if you take a box of honey off from one hive, extract that, put all the frames back in that box, put it on top of the inner cover in there, let the bees go up there, clean it all out.
Okay.
It's their hive. So
Right,
they're not.
and then-
You're not going to give any other diseases or anything to other hives.
And then the robber bees can't.
The robber bees can't get to it.
Smart.
The bees will clean it all up, and then in say about a week or so, go back, or maybe less than a week, but depending how warm it is, and the bees are able to clean it all out, then you just take it off.
Okay.
Now that goes into, well, what about the wax moths that might get in there or whatever? I found that even the hives that, in my case, that have died, that have ceased to live through the winter, what I've done with them is actually just leave them outside, because wax moths have to wait until it's warm enough to survive. They won't come around until the weather's warmer. So I've had empty hives setting in my backyard, and they might even have had honey on them, and I've not had any issue with lots of insects and whatever eating it.
Well, what we were thinking about doing is we've got that back room back there, taking and doing the best we can. And you say freeze them. I mean, as long as all the honey is out of them, we could probably just stack them all
Yes,
in the back room.
if you
Indoors.
were to freeze them, and people might say, well, why do I need to freeze them? Try as you may, do the best you can. Try not to have any either small hive beetles or wax moths get into your wax. They will find a way to lay eggs. Now, in a normal hive, a hive that's doing great, you still might have one or two eggs where they lay the egg. A small hive beetle will lay an egg, or a wax moth will lay an egg somewhere, and it'll still be in that frame. So a lot of people think, well, I haven't seen any. I don't see any in there. If you don't freeze it and you stack them up, say in a garage or in another room or whatever, and it's warm enough, then they'll go to town and they'll wipe out all of that wax. Now, some people say, what about this it's bacillus, T bacillus that you use? It's like a natural thing to take care of the wax moths. You put it, you spritz it on the wax comb, and it'll take care of that. Let me tell you what I did one year. I had a stack of honey supers that I did that to. I sprayed the T bacillus treatment on the frames. I put a box fan on top of them, and it was in a room that's probably didn't get down below freezing, so it's probably maybe 50 degrees or whatever. By springtime, I had the bottom 2 or 3 boxes completely wiped out by wax moths.
Wow.
So even though
Now
I
those
treated
were
it,
outside.
they were not outdoors. They were in a room that didn't go below freezing. But the wax moths were somehow, even where we were treated.
So even if I put them in my back room here in the house, I would still have wax moths.
You might have wax moths.
Let them clean it out and freeze it.
And freeze it. Once you freeze each frame,
Okay.
put it in a big bag and tie it up. Some people, what they'll do is they'll use it's moth crystals, and it's like mothballs, but it's a certain, you got to use a certain kind, and they'll put a box down and sprinkle a layer of the crystals, put another box, newspaper, and stack them up that way.
Hey, we just hit 10,000 likes. Thanks for putting us out there, guys. We're gonna have more people starting to come in now.
All right, awesome.
We have more to talk about. That's the problem.
Yeah, we're running out of stuff.
Well, let's introduce you again. So this is my friend Steve. Steve, tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been a beekeeper more than 25 years. I got introduced when I was still in high school to bees. I had bees, a hive given to me, and I kind of faltered with it for a couple of years. I had it, but then it died out, and I gave it up until about the year 2000, and I took it back up again. But I've had bees since 2000. Also, for a couple of years, I was president of East Richmond, Virginia Beekeepers Association.
Nice.
So, being a president, you have to line up either speakers or interesting topics. So I was able to round up stuff, and there. Just a word of a caution for people that are interested in looking up videos and stuff online. you want to look up more than just one person's videos or one person's take on things.
Yeah.
And I say that because one beekeeper that I know of, he's a really good teacher, and he's out in Indiana. Well, beekeeping in Indiana is their kind of beekeeping. It's different than beekeeping here in upstate New York or in Virginia or in Florida. So beekeeping is specific for a certain area. So if you really want to know what it's like to get into the bees in your area, beekeeping, find a local bee club that has people that have been in it for a while, and go in there and just absorb everything you can, and catch the old time beekeepers and ask them any of the questions you have. And a lot of times they're very patient and they'll answer your questions. But a lot of the problem with people that online, when you look up stuff, you don't know how long the people have been keeping bees, and it's like they might have had them for 1 year. They haven't experienced everything that could happen when you're taking care of bees. So you really want to get a broad spectrum of people and information. And just like I had wrong information when I first started out and tried to catch a swarm of bees in a cardboard box. I was told they're very gentle. Well, these bees had been there for a few days. They ran out of honey. They didn't have any more honey in them, so they were a little bit antsy. So
did you have your smoke with you?
I didn't have a smoker because I heard they're real gentle.
Oh.
I read in this paper, they're very gentle when they're in a swarm. So I said, okay, I'm on a 40-foot ladder. I'll scrape them into the box.
Oh, Steve.
I scraped them. I had a button-up shirt on, short sleeve, and I think I had shorts on too. Anyway, they started stinging me. They got under my shirt, on my back. And fortunately, I had a friend of mine. She was out watering the garden. Guess what she did?
Hosed him down.
She watered me down.
Yeah, good for her.
She knew enough to I said, she goes, what's the matter? I said, they're stinging me. So I ended up she ended up hosing me down, and that calmed down the bees some.
That's good.
But we learn by mistakes. So don't get into this thinking you're never going to make a mistake. That's obvious. It's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes.
Yep. Leaving the cover off.
And the thing about that too is if you make a mistake, you learn from it and you move on.
won't do it again.
Yeah. And I told somebody, they said, well, I did everything right and my bees died anyway. And I said, you got to remember, bees are just like any kind of agriculture. You can do all the right things and everything, and you still have losses. So the thing is to pick yourself up, try to learn from what happened.
Hey, buddy, remind me that next spring, okay? Because if I lose my bees, I think I will cry.
They'll say it'll be a learning experience.
Yeah.
It won't say it'll be nice. It'll just say it'll be a learning experience.
Yeah.
And we all have those.
Yeah. Well, everyone, it's been nice being with you again. This is my buddy Steve here. He's from Richmond, Virginia. He's a beekeeper for many, many years. He started me out about a year ago, and I thank you for being with us. And we'll see you again.
All right. Goodbye.
Can't goodbye until I turn that on.
You can't goodbye.
Not yet.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.
Not yet. I'll do
Goodbye.
it again. Do it again.
We mean it. We're saying goodbye now. Goodbye.
I don't know if it went off. Here's another blooper.
Oh,
and
okay.
now.